I want to go ahead and talk about the 2023 to 2024 awards. And I want to talk about it before the playoffs started because these are regular season awards. And I feel like the playoffs sometimes taint that a little bit because people forget it's regular season. So when somebody performs crazy in the postseason, they want to hand the award to that guy instead of this guy over here because they factor that into it.
Right.
Again, it's a regular season award. So I want to go ahead and go over that. MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, the Comeback Player of the Year, and the Coach of the Year. And I want your winners and I want your runner-up as well. So I want both. So starting off MVP, who is your MVP this season?
It's going to be Lamar Jackson.
And I agree. Absolutely.
It's just crazy because he hasn't had that great of a season. But they've stomped the mud hole in every tough team they've played, and that's something that you can't say about the guys that are second or third on this list that would have won. You know, the 49ers dropped a game to the Ravens, and the Cowboys lost big games they played in this year. So I think you have to give it to Lamar.
Absolutely. And my runner-up is Dak. And that's the argument, right? Dak has the better statistical. You put them up side by side, right? You go to, Pro Football Reference, right? You put them up side by side, and Dak has all the better stats than Lamar, except for rushing. Obviously, all the rushing stats are going to be better for Lamar. But it doesn't, and what I'm trying to explain to Cowboys fans, certain Cowboys fans, is Lamar is beating winning teams. And some people say it doesn't matter. It does matter. It absolutely matters. That is what matters, is that he's beating winning teams. End of the day, Dak isn't. Now, here and there, obviously, right? We're putting up good fights against Miami. We beat Philly, but it's a division opponent. How much stock do you put in it? There's that argument we put out there. We beat Detroit. It was a really close game. Some weird stuff happened at the end of the game. Again, it's he's beating the winning teams, the Niners, Miami, Cleveland. He's beating those teams. Dak just isn't, right? That's why he's my runner-up and not the MVP. Who's your runner-up?
I'm kind of exhausted on the MVP conversation when it relates to Dak and Brock. I think when the votes come out, I think that Brock will be second place because I just think that the media is going to be able to give it to Lamar, but then recognize how nuts what's happening in San Francisco is. So
yeah,
I'm more guessing on what it's going to be, not what I think it'll be, because personally, I think the most important person on, and just so we're clear, the odds to win the Super Bowl favor the 49ers as we sit today, not the Ravens. The most important person on that team is Christian McCaffrey. Dumb. So I think it should be Christian McCaffrey, but you said it's dumb.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird how that works? Odds, but Vegas never loses, man. Like Vegas right. Never loses. So they know what they're doing. But I don't personally like when you go back and watch that 49ers Ravens game, none of anything that happened in that game is you don't take that into the next game. Brock's not going to throw 4 picks, three of them were tips and, stupid plays or whatnot, but only one of the picks was like a stupid decision by him. So maybe they just think the 49ers are still the better team. The one thing about the Ravens is, Mark Andrews is that might play. And the other thing I will tell you is Lamar can't win a damn playoff game. So everybody wants to anoint them to the Super Bowl, but he's never been good in the playoffs. So maybe there's some of that also, but Dak, Brock, whoever, I don't care. The second, it's going to be one of them. They both had amazing seasons. Dak's probably going to earn his $60 million contract. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The NFL is probably going to have to figure out their salary cap really, really quickly because as you saw with the Chiefs this year, Patrick Mahomes really hamstrung that team. They had to let go of Tyreek Hill to sign Chris Jones. They won a Super Bowl because of that. That's great. But these contracts are about to explode. And The one thing is I think Dak's contract is going to really set the market a little bit, because if anybody has any insider information as to what the salary cap is going to be going forward, it would be Jerry Jones. So
Yeah.
whatever contract he signs Dak to is going to kind of be an eye opener for the league as to what the salary cap is expected to be. But the NFL is a license to print cash at this point. So I think the salary cap is really just an arbitrary number. They can make it whatever the hell they want it to be, because even the Carolina Panthers are profitable. So
Yeah, and I think that you sent in the group chat, you asked the question regarding CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, would I swap them, uh, especially taking contract into it, and I would, for how well CJ has played and for how much money Dak is about to make, and we're about to have to pay multiple guys. Mike Parsons is going to be coming up for contract here pretty soon. CD Lamb is going to be coming up for contract.
That contract's going to be nasty.
And then we have even smaller guys who played a big role. I mean, Tyron Smith, as much as he has sat out when he is on the field as the left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys are better. Their offense is better. Their offensive line altogether is better. Tyler Smith plays better. It's just a well-oiled machine when he's actually on the field. And then you got guys like Stephon Gilmore. And then you have guys like Brandon Cooks. So guys who aren't going to make a ton of money, but they are still going to demand something. And that's what's really going to hinder it. So if I could switch the Dak and CJ thing immediately and then be able to sign a bunch of guys and then still go for a Super Bowl run, I absolutely would. And I love Dak. I absolutely do. And I've been a Dak defender forever, and I absolutely will. Not just because of the player he is, but because of the person he is. I think Dak deserves it all. But I would trade him immediately for CJ Stroud tomorrow because of the contract situation. Absolutely.
Well, and just so you know, this may surprise you, but the other person that's in that group chat, I asked him live on over air what he would do, and he actually said he would trade him also.
Wow.
So now the thing is when it comes to trading the face of your franchise, and it's the same thing we were talking about, saving money for the 49ers, and if they could move off Eric Armstead in the offseason, but he's the Walter Payton Man of the Year for the 49ers, and every year that, like, this isn't Madden, this isn't your fantasy team, so you can't just there's a lot of people in that Dallas organization that would be furious if Dak got sent out. So maybe it doesn't happen in real life, but it's definitely fun conversation to have.
Absolutely. Going back to the awards, the Offensive Player of the Year, is your runner-up, or who you think should be the MVP, is that your Offensive Player of the Year?
You know what's funny is I think that whoever comes second in MVP voting should be the Offensive Player of the Year. I know it doesn't ever happen that way, but I think that it's important to recognize players that have had standout seasons in unique ways. And I don't love just giving Tyreek Hill this award because he filled up the stat page, because he's done that a lot in his career. So for me, the winner of the award is Christian McCaffrey, because running backs have gone to die. And what he's done this year has been unique and incredible. And my runner-up is CeeDee Lamb, because what CeeDee Lamb did this year is you could argue that Dak has been really good this year, but there's 10 or 15 other quarterbacks that you would have put in there, and they would have beat all the shitty teams that you guys beat, and they would have lost all the good teams that you guys beat. Now, I'm not saying anything about Dak, but CeeDee Lamb is really the engine. Nobody's afraid of Michael Gallup. Brandon Cooks has only been good the last 6 to 8 weeks of the season. Now, that's a huge boost for you guys going into the playoffs, but he did nothing the first half of the year. So I'm giving it to Christian McCaffrey. Number 2, I'm giving it to CeeDee Lamb, just because Tyreek Hill did some awesome stuff this year, but he's been awesome his entire career. To me, here's a hot take for you. Tyreek Hill's a top 5 wide receiver of all time. When it's all said and done, he's a top 5 wide receiver of all time. I'm taking him over Terrell Owens. And to be honest with you, if you asked me Randy Moss or Tyreek Hill, I'd have to sit here and look at some stats and get back to you on that. Now, obviously, I'm always going to go for my guy Jerry as number 1, but Tyreek, when he's done, might be a top 3 wide receiver of all time. So all the power to him. he's, the other thing I got to tell you is I don't really think that they want to give him the award. And then when kids are sitting at home Googling Tyreek Hill, it links to the story about him wanting to be a porn star. I think a lot of that goes into play. When you Google Christian McCaffrey, it's all good things. When you Google CeeDee Lamb, it's all good things. So, but to be honest with you, I think it honestly would be a complete shock if Christian McCaffrey didn't take home the award. I think that would be completely shocking.
And I agree with you. Christian McCaffrey is the offensive player of the year for me. And then CeeDee Lamb is going to be my runner-up, absolutely.
Nice.
And then I think this award here, this next one, in my opinion, might be the most interesting award because there's not a clear-cut guy. And it's the Defensive Player of the Year award. For you and I and myself, we might have different answers. And I think you could take a poll of 10 NFL fans and they might all say a different thing or another. One might say one of the 3 defensive end guys, or one might say a corner or 2. I don't think there's a clear-cut winner, but for you, who is the Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, I hate this award, to be honest with you, because I think it's such a stat-based award when there's integral. The guy who's the Defensive Player of the Year on the 49ers, he's not even the most important defensive player on the field for us in any given week, but Bosa gets all the awards. So Defensive Player of the Year for me, I'm going to give it to Myles Garrett. There was just so many times every week this week where it wasn't just sacks. It was fumbles. It was batted passes. Like, it reminds me of Aaron Donald from a couple years ago where every single play that dude was a menace. You don't run his way, And I think if you're going to go with your guy, the book on Micah is run at him, right? Wear him down.
Mm-hmm.
You don't run at Myles Garrett, and he got injured in a couple other things, but if it comes out Myles Garrett, if it comes out Micah Parsons, if it comes out TJ Watt, I won't be surprised at any of that. Personally, I'm okay if it goes to Micah because now they all have one. Nick has one, Myles has one, TJ has one, Micah has one. Now next year it's like, all right, which one of them is going to start to separate themselves? So the other thing is with the stat based situation is Micah had 11 sacks last year, I think. It's such a small number of sacks, but he affected the football field on almost every damn play. That's how I felt about Myles Garrett this year.
So I'm going to go with Micah, and I don't even want to hear the argument for TJ Watt at all. I don't even at all. Okay. And here's why I'm going to go with Micah over Myles, because I'm a big Myles Garrett fan and I almost gave it to him. But the problem is they have the same amount of sacks. Micah has over 100 pressures, which the only other person who had over 100 pressures or like around the same amount of pressures as him was Max Crosby. So those guys had over 100 pressures. I think Myles Garrett had around like 80 something ish was roughly where he's at. He had a higher pressure rate, higher win rate, higher double team rate than Myles Garrett. And then if we're talking about TJ Watt, I'm going to go ahead and shelve that one because he got double teamed less at like 14%, while Myles Garrett was at like 31 and Michael was at like 35%, and TJ's getting 14%. TJ Watt's own teammate, Alex Highsmith, was getting double teamed at a higher rate than TJ Watt was. So I don't even want to hear the conversation. Sure, he had 19 sacks, so congratulations. You're not getting double teamed, you're not getting as many pressures, you're not there. Okay, so I don't really want to hear it. And then on top of that, if we're going to go ahead and look at Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons, Micah Parsons has one more tackle for loss. He has more tackles than Myles Garrett. He has one less pass deflection. He has 3 more quarterback hits. He has the same amount of forced fumble. Oh, sorry. Myles Garrett does have 3 forced fumbles. So that's the one stat that Myles Garrett has way over Micah Parsons. But outside of that, they're neck and neck with a lot of the hurries and the pressure rates. But Micah has more pressure, more double teamed. He's doing it more. Obviously, I see it more too because I watch him week to week. But I'm going to give it to Micah because he's, in my opinion, as much as sometimes it feels like he disappears, you don't get 103 pressures while Myles Garrett, a guy who's everywhere at all times, only gets 86 and you disappear. He's there. He's just not making a lot of noise like other guys are, right? TJ Watt, 19 sacks, while the other two guys have 14. But the pressures are there. There's more of a disruption. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and just looking at some premium PFF stats, they love they love Micah this year. They love Myles Garrett this year. I think it's funny, honestly. I watch him every week. Obviously, I think it's funny how PFF grades Nick Bosa because they absolutely love Nick Bosa. The dude only had like 11 sacks this year. I'm not the pressures and the hurries and all this stuff. I'm not 100% certain. I don't know what a pressure means. I don't know what a hurry means because I have a quarterback that is like top of the league history against the blitz. So when you pressure Brock Purdy, it really doesn't do anything. When you hurry Brock Purdy, it doesn't really do anything. So to me, it's about the players that can get home, and tackles for loss and sacks, not hurries and pressures. So that's why I would, the other thing is I'm a big gambler. I'm a big betting odds guy, and Myles Garrett is the betting odds favorite to win the award. So that's kind of why I go for him. But there's TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, and Micah. I mean, how much really separates the five of these guys, except for age? You know what I mean? They're all very elite at what they do. And frankly, do you want to know why Nick Bosa doesn't have 40 sacks a year? Do you want to know why Michael Parsons doesn't have 40 sacks a year? It's because the NFL allows these offensive linemen to put them in fucking headlocks week in and week out. It's so funny. Like all you can search on Elon's app the word hold, and all you see is photos of Nick and Micah, like this whole arm brace around their neck being choked out because it's like, that's all you can do, So I kind of like the idea of giving it to Micah just so everybody has one. And then we can, plus the more awards Micah gets, the more they have to pay that dude. Thankfully, Bosa set the bar really, really high. So they got to give him a bunch of money. Then they got to pay CeeDee Lamb a bunch of money. Then they're going to pay Deron Bland a bunch of money. And I'm all for the Cowboys having to pay their players a lot of money. So,
all right, moving on to the Offensive Rookie of the Year. This is the other one that causes a bunch of controversy as well. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think there's only one clear winner / runner-up. Same thing with Defensive Player of the Year for you and I. One's a winner, one's a runner-up. Offensive Rookie of the Year to me, it's one winner, one runner-up. I think it's pretty obvious. 1A, 1B.
Who's your runner-up?
My runner-up is Puka Nacua.
Okay.
Yep. And then my Offensive Rookie of the Year is CJ Stroud.
Right. Freaking Puka, man, he was so successful this year that I had totally forgot that he wasn't a rookie, and I was thinking of Laporta for Detroit. So that's why I was curious as to who your backup. But yeah, this award, we don't have to spend much more time on that. The opportunity for a quarterback to win it every year is very, very high. I think every historic thing that happens in today's NFL with the amount of scouting and advanced analytics and all the stuff that goes into it is more impressive than the shit that happened 20 years ago. And I know the old heads, luckily they don't have TikTok and all those things, so they might not see this, but I don't care what Peyton Manning did as a rookie because times were different then. What CJ Stroud has done this year. Now, I'm slightly hesitant on how he follows it up next year, but when you got Bryce Young that looked like absolute garbage this year, and you could say what you want about the weapons, I'm so sick of hearing about CJ Stroud's weapons. Nobody gave a shit about Nico Collins last year. Nobody.
No.
And now he looks like Randy Moss. So let's dial that back for a second. And that's because of CJ Stroud. That's because of Slowick, another Shanahan tree guy who's 1 year with CJ Stroud. He's getting head coaching job interviews. That's because of the offense that CJ Stroud was able to implement to make those guys weapons, because they weren't weapons last year. Now, obviously, they got a pretty good tight end. But besides that, I just think it's one of those things where next year might be a little tough. There might be a little sophomore slump. But I tell you what, the Texans feel a lot better about where they are right now than the Jaguars do. So,
Yeah, so CJ Stroud in 15 games, 63.9 completion percentage, 4,108 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So, and then with your top 3 pass catchers as Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz. Tank Dell, obviously the other rookie. Tank Dell's out of Houston, right? Wasn't Tank Dell out of Houston?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Tank Dell out of Houston. And then again, nobody was worried about Nico. And then Dalton Schultz getting signed over from the Cowboys. And then the next closest guy, or I guess your third pass catcher going into the playoffs this week, is technically Noah Brown, also from the Cowboys, which, nobody's really worried about either. But, still he goes out and Noah Brown still goes out and catches 33 receptions for 567 yards and 5 touchdowns.
I think one of the best parts about doing this podcast is getting some of our statements on air, because like with the wrapping up of this season, I went back and looked at some of my wide receiver rankings when you and I were discussing the draft last year, and I'm just like trying to like, all right, Puka Nakua, Puka Nakua, Puka, 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 Puka.
14th,
I'm
by
getting
the way,
really,
I'm pretty sure.
I'm getting
Pretty
really
sure mine was
far down
14th.
that list before I find Puka Nakua. I had Tank Dell pretty
Yeah.
high actually, so I feel good about that one.
Do you have mine? Do you have mine up there? I know it's saved in our chat, like you and I, but I don't remember what I put in there. All I remember is, I do remember I had somebody relatively high that I don't think a lot of people had, like pretty high up on their list, but I know I was high on, and he turned out pretty good. And I don't know why the name is not coming to me right now, but yeah, I would like to go back maybe relatively soon to our Snapchat text messages back and forth and see what we have in there, because a lot of that stuff would be pretty interesting.
Well,
I do want to hand out draft grades as well. I want to do that.
It was a tough year for me on the Christian Watson fan base. He didn't build on week. He's had a lot of injuries this year, and I got to tell you, when fantasy football kicked off this year, I drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba because I had a firm belief that he was going to be the rookie of the year this year. And maybe a little bit mismanagement over there. We've seen him make a couple of plays this year that show what he is, but yeah,
and
Puka
I think
Nakua was not on the list.
No, and I think there's a big difference between Jackson Smith and Jigba to Quentin Johnston. Both guys are like wide receiver threes. One guy gets the opportunity and he drops passes, and the other one, when he does get the ball in his hands, he shows what he can be. There's a big difference there,
Well, and I hated the Quentin Johnson. I would have to say, if I would tell you, if I had a second team, I'd say it's the Chargers, obviously because of my dad. I hated that Quentin pick. I'm like, why? Why?
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense.
I think the Ravens kid went right after that. And I'm like, you already got Mike Williams. You already got Keenan Allen. These are big dudes. Can we get a speedy? Can you imagine Justin Herbert with Puka Nakua this year? Like, now obviously hindsight's 2020, just like this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But Puka nobody had him there. But man, get the Johnson thing, man. That guy's career looks like it's already off the rails. So we'll see.
It was Rashee Rice and Josh Downs I had relatively high. Well, not a ton of people had them higher. I had them higher than a lot of other people, especially Rashee Rice. I was like I think I had him like wide receiver 4 or something, and he almost hit 1,000. He really started coming on at the end of the season. That was the other guy. I was trying to remember who it was.
He's definitely a potential wild card for them, because I rocked him and Travis Kelce down the stretch in fantasy playoffs, and Rashee Rice is he's one of those dudes where he can get the ball on a 2-yard pop pass and it might go for 60 or 70. So
yep. And then moving back to the awards, defensive rookie of the year. My defensive rookie of the year is Jalen Carter. I think the odds have Will Anderson as the 2. I think Devon Witherspoon is like right there at the 3, along with Will Anderson. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm like wrong about this. Like maybe let me re-look it up, but it's not close to me. Jalen Carter from the defensive tackle position put up 6 sacks, while Will Anderson put up 7. And anytime that you turned on the Eagles game, he's being disruptive. It's just like when you're watching film of him at Georgia and you turn on the film, you go, who is 88? Who is that guy? And it's the same thing with him moving into the league, the NFL. He's doing the exact same thing. Incredibly impressive season. He's one of the most disruptive guys on that line, even with Hassan Reddick there on the outside. I think Jalen Carter is going to be good, unfortunately, for a long time to come. Who's your defensive rookie there?
Do you have a runner up?
I do. I would say that's Devon Witherspoon. That's my backup.
Okay. Carter, man, I think that for the fanfare of him coming into the league, and what he put on tape, he's obviously going to be a solid player for years to come. And I'm going to go away from the betting odds on this one because I think he's going to win the award. But Christian Gonzalez for me, for the Patriots,
he was really good.
And the thing about the tackles is the Ravens rookie. Is it Nakobe Dean?
No. You're thinking of the Rams rookie.
Who did I say? Ravens?
Yeah, it's the Rams rookie.
Yeah, he led rookies in sacks. I think he had 9 or 10.
It's like Kobe something.
Yeah, it's Kobe something. Yeah, it's Kobe something. Kobe Dean
he's
or something really like that.
Yeah.
I should probably Google it so I know what I'm talking about before I go off on these things. But Jalen Carter was awesome. Hijacking the pod for Kobe Turner. I thought Christian Gonzalez was really good. I thought Joey Porter Jr. was really good. To me, I think it's harder as a rookie corner to come in and make an impact. What Sauce did last year was phenomenal. So I tend to want to give the awards to things that are, the Eagles defensive tackle. He had a hell of a year, but watching him play in college last year, you knew the kid was the truth. So, and the only thing that led the Patriots to looking any type of decent this year was their defense. And I thought Christian Gonzalez was a big part of that. So I'll give him my runner up just because I don't think they're going to give him the award. And obviously we'll give the Eagles rookie the award because how many clips did we see this year of some team coming up to him after the game being like, man, how did they get you where they got you? You're going to be a beast in this league for a long time. So when you have the respect of your peers, you have the respect of everybody. So I think it's probably pretty obvious that he's going to get the award.
I think so. If Christian Gonzalez doesn't get hurt, he got hurt week 6, 7, something like that. If he doesn't get hurt midway through the season, I think there is a really, really strong case to give him the award. Like we're sitting here talking about being like, do we give it to Jalen Carter? Like, look how good this kid's been out in New England. Like, it's been ridiculous. Like, playing top 10, top 5 corner play of like the first 8 weeks. I mean, he was stupid. So I absolutely agree with you. If he doesn't get hurt, I think we might be handing that award to him right now. And now, comeback player of the year. My comeback player of the year is kind of a toss-up.
I hate this award this year because I think it's so obvious who they're going to give it to, and I'm not.
I wish that they did it like the NBA, like a most improved player. I think that's a much better award, and we can go ahead and we can hand it off to like Baker. We can hand it off to Baker Mayfield, be like most improved player, congratulations, or someone else, right? If I'm just having fun with it and I'm saying comeback player of the year, I'm saying Joe Flacco just because I think that's cool, sitting on his couch and comes back. And
for sure,
I think is he second or is he first in the odds favor right now?
The thing about him, he's second, but I think he has a good shot at winning this award because this isn't a dude that hasn't played for 3 years, but he's been trash since 2018. He's been awful. And he found a scheme that worked for him and a coach that believed in him, and it's truly been a great comeback. Obviously, when you have somebody that for scientific purposes dies on the football field and comes back and plays football the next year, it's a feel-good story. He donates a lot to charity. The reason why I kind of hate this is because he's probably out of the league in 2 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he doesn't get too much run, but I mean they're going to make their statement with this. So
yeah, they are, and I agree. Let's move on. I think this other award is super interesting too. Coach of the year. Who is your coach of the year, and then who's your runner-up? Because I think there's actually not just like 2 guys you can hand this to. I think there's like maybe 3 or 4 guys you can hand this to. think there's a lot of impressive coaches and a lot of impressive teams from last year to this year. I think there's a lot going on here that you can hand a couple guys. So who's your coach of the year? And you can shout out as many coaches as you want who you think might even end up being a runner-up.
I think this might be a good year for them to let this award tie, to be
Oh
honest
yeah,
with you, because D'Amico deserves the recognition. Dan
absolutely.
Campbell winning for the first time in Detroit. Obviously,
Yeah.
when you have 16 different quarterbacks and you have to pull Joe Flacco off his couch to get to
Yep.
the playoffs,
Yep. Shane
this is an
Steichen with the
award.
Colts.
Even Sean McVay with what he's done with the
Yeah.
Rams this year. You imagine if the Rams go in there and God forbid this happens, I'll freaking give up watching football. What if the Rams made it to the Super Bowl? It might be the greatest coaching job in sports. Now, obviously, it's a
Yeah.
regular season award, but I think this would be a good year to give it to Stefanski and
Yeah.
D'Amico, because
Yeah, I
D'Amico
agree.
deserves it, man. Like, to me, everybody's like, oh, Dan Campbell, they won their division for the first time in 31 years. I'm like, listen, you don't get an award because the franchise has been poverty. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
you went to the playoffs. Congratulations. And if you are
Yeah.
going to go off of that, how do you not give it to D'Amico? Because he's a rookie head coach. That's more impressive than Dan Campbell getting there. He has a rookie quarterback that's more impressive than Jared Goff doing it. So
Absolutely.
to me, he's third, fourth, fifth place, firmly entrenched. And then realistically, the two best coaching jobs in the NFL this season, and one of these coaches I'm a firm believer in, and the other guy I think sucks. But Kyle Shanahan is the number one seed with Mr. Irrelevant, and he had Mr. Irrelevant as an MVP favorite 16 weeks through the season. And everybody said over and over and over that Kellen Moore was the savant. And then Mike McCarthy turned Dak Prescott into an MVP candidate. And Dak Prescott has been the ringleader for mediocre tier 2 QBs for his entire career. The Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr guys. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, holy shit, he's the best quarterback in the NFC because Mike
Yeah.
McCarthy's calling the plays. So if you wanted to split it between Kyle Shanahan and Mike McCarthy, that's who, the thing is every year it's some team that sucks and then they got good and they give it to them. Congratulations,
Yeah.
whatever. How about the teams that continue to operate at the highest level, face the toughest teams, win the biggest games, gets the award for once? So making Brock Purdy an MVP candidate is Coach of the Year award material. Making Dak Prescott an MVP candidate is Coach of the Year award material. But splitting it between Stefanski and D'Amico, I'm okay with that also, because going to the playoffs with 6 different quarterbacks or 4 different quarterbacks, including one that was on his couch, and going to the playoffs with a rookie. And these they added a 7th team to the playoffs. It's not that impressive to make the playoffs anymore. These are division winners. The Texans, what they've done this year, what the Browns have done this year, it's